Hey everybody, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2019 Ford F-150, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Custom Fit fifth wheel rail kit. But before we get into that, why don't we take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Nowadays, these half-ton trucks are really capable, and so people are using them to do some pretty heavy-duty towing. And it makes sense, you know, you can pull those bigger trailers around, and then when you're not towing, still get decent fuel mileage and everything else. And that's where a rail system like this is going to come into play. So this is going to allow you to drop in a fifth wheel head and pull a fifth wheel trailer down the road. Pretty standard, you know, a lot of different fifth wheel heads are going to work with this. Like I said, industry standard rails, so nothing too crazy there. Something I want to mention though, with the beds now being so short, so this is a 5.5 foot bed, whatever hitch you do end up getting, you're going to want one that has the ability to slide back, or even have you know, a different pin box on your trailer, like the Sidewinder, for example, that moves around. And I say that because you don't have a ton of clearance up here, so when you go to make those tight turns and you got your fifth wheel back here, you know, chances are pretty good you might make contact with the cab corner or the trailer and then damage things. So definitely something to keep in mind. And that kind of brings you to my next point. On this 5.5 foot bed where the front of our rail is, you might have like a foot up here. So I know some people ask about toolboxes and things like that. With this setup, chances are pretty good you're not going to be able to put a toolbox up here and be able to use your hitch. These are the square holes here where the hitch is going to drop in, and this is what I was talking about when I was saying industry standard. So just about any hitch from the past decade and then some should drop in here and work. They're not going to sit too high above the bed, you know, a little ways up, but not a huge deal. You can still put stuff in the bed of your truck and use it and things like that. As far as the quality of these, I feel like Curt, the last handful of ones that I've done have been better than they were a few years ago. The hardware's nice, everything's put together. As far as the fitment goes, this particular one went together very nice, and it wasn't too bad. So I think they're definitely making improvement as far as that goes. And you know, if this is something you're thinking about, you know, doing, or if you're pulling that heavier trailer with a half ton, there could potentially be some other upgrades you might want to consider as well. So for example, today, our neighbor, we did the rails. We're putting in, obviously the hitch. It's an A16, I believe, Curt hitch, and he has the Sidewinder pin box. And then we're doing airbags, airlift airbags, as well as a compressor. So he kind of has the whole package there, and it's going to make his towing experience, you know, that much better. Really easy to use and smooth. So just something to consider if that's what you're thinking about doing. But other than that, at the end of the day, a nice kit. You know, like I said, it went together good. Didn't really have any issues. The hardest part is probably just torquing all the bolts down, because you don't have a ton of room to work under there when you're trying to do that. But something you got to do one time, right? But if you'd like to see how that's done, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and put the hitch on together now. Our shield is going to be held in place with 3 13mm head bolts, just like this one here. Pull that one out, and then there's going to be 2 just like it up top here. We can lower this out of the way and set it off to the side until we have all of our parts installed. Prepare our side plates and our in-bed rails. They give you some of these stickers with everything, and you want to put this on any surface of the hitch that's going to be in contact with aluminum. since we have an aluminum bed. You can refer to your instructions, but that's pretty straightforward. You know, all these spots here, and they give you long ones you can put on the embed rails. So go ahead and just prep everything. It'll make it a little bit easier later on. Move to your wheel wells, and we can get our hardware in the frame for our side plates. You're going to have 2 attachment points, and I circled them. You're going to be using this hole as well as this one here. And the side plates are side specific, so make sure to check your instructions on you know, what one you have, so you put it on the right side. But what we're going to be doing is fish wiring hardware in. So you're going to have a pull wire, take the coiled end, push it through the attachment point and out of the larger hole just in front of the attachment points. And then you can take the big 5/8 bolt and the large spacer block. And how this is going to work, I'm going to thread this on here. I'll get it going and show you what it looks like. So it just threads right onto that pull wire. Grab the other end. Feed the hardware through. Until we get it to come out. Sometimes that pull wire will want to get hung up on the spacer block. If that happens, you can kind of just come in from the back and try to work it through there. You want it to pull out just like that. And then I'm going to use that same technique and the same hardware combo for that attachment point. Now on each one of our attachment points, you can take this big square block, put that over, and feed it onto the bolt just like that. So once you have both of them on there, you can then take the appropriate side plate, push the pull wires through it, slide that up into position, and get our bolts pulled through there. Once the bolt comes through, each one of them, you can take a flange nut and get it started hand tight. And once this is in place here, we're going to do the same process over on the other side of our truck. Push the side plate up as high as you can, and once you've achieved that, come back with a 15/16 size socket and just lightly snug them down to keep it in place. Underneath the truck, where our side plate comes through, the side plate part towards the back of the truck, you're going to have 2 elongated holes here, and these are going to be attachment points for our embed rails. And so what you want to do is take a center punch and go in the center of it as best you can and make an indentation. We're going to do that for all of these. That way we can go up in the bed and make sure everything lines up. Set your rail in place and line it up with the dimples that we made from our punch area from the bottom. Just use those as a reference to get us close. And then you can measure from your bed, the end of the bed, not the tailgate, to the amount specified in the instructions on the back edge here. Make sure, you know, that's correct, and then reference your dimples again there. And then you want to make sure that this is centered. So the same on each side. You can just measure from your wheel well tubs there to the end. And once you have it exactly where you want it, what I like to do is just take a ballpoint pen and kind of trace around it. That way we don't lose the positioning. With this in the proper position, you know, you can mark the points. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3 holes in. Put a mark there in the center. Mark there in the center. The rail, you know, the rear rail, you're going to put one right there. You're not going to worry about anything up here. And then the same on this side as well. 1, 2, 3 in on each side. I can move the rail out of the way and take a small drill bit and pre-drill all of the marks that we made. With our pilot holes made, if you want, not a bad idea to go underneath the truck, check, you know, just make sure that they line up how you want them, which I did, and we're in really good shape. So now we're going to come back with a 9/16 drill bit and enlarge them out. With the holes enlarged, I did just take a paint stick and cover up the bare metal, even though it's aluminum. I figured it couldn't hurt. But on the sides, you're going to take these spacers, put that special tape on them, line those up. And then in the middle, you're going to take 2 U-shaped spacers, and on the one that's going to touch the bed, put that special tape. And those will sit like that. And then we can take our rail, again, make sure you get that tape on there. We're going to set it in place. Making sure everything's lined up. And then for these holes, you're going to take carriage bolts. In the kit, there's going to be 2 carriage bolts that are just a little bit shorter. This one here. Those are going to go in the center hole. So the other ones, though, will just drop straight down. Shorter one, they're in the middle. And then the other 2 right over through there. Now, underneath the truck, all of the hardware that comes through, you're going to put on one of these spacer blocks and a flange nut. And we're just going to get all of them started hand tight. Take your 5th wheel that you're going to be using and drop it in the truck bed and put it in the rear rail. And then that's going to determine the placement for our front rail. And so what I did was I got the front rail close until this dropped in, you know, and then I pushed them tight together, the 2 rails, and then just took some measurements for our front rail. You know, you want to make sure it's centered and everything is square. Once you find that positioning, then we can start to get our hardware in. Pretty much identical to the back rail. You know, once it's squared, drill your pilot holes, enlarge them, drop the long carriage bolts through there. And the center, same deal, 2 U-shaped spacers, but this attachment point is going to be towards the front of the truck. And those spacers, make sure you put on that special tape where it's going to contact the bed. And over here it's going to be the same. So 3 holes in, drill your pilot holes, enlarge them, and drop that same hardware through. Underneath the truck now, here's where our bolts come through. And you're going to take this style spacer like we used on the back rail, but up on top of the bed, and use it to fill the gap in here. Don't forget to put the tape on it where it's going to touch the truck bed. Once you get that spacer block placed in between the bed and our side plates, you can put on a spacer block and a flange nut, get them all hand tight, just like all the other hardware. At this point, we can snug up all our hardware, and there's a sequence you want to use for this. You want to tighten down or snug up all the hardware that's holding on our in-bed rails to the side plates, and then you can come and tighten down the center bolt holding down the in-bed rail to the actual truck bed. And then after that, you come back and hit all the side plates to the frame. So just got a 19mm or 3/4 inch socket, and snug them all down. Once you have all the hardware snug, now we can come back and torque it all down to the amount specified in the instructions, and we're going to use that same tightening sequence. Now with that said, some of the bolts are a little tight, to get up into, so you can use a tool like this to give you some space to get in there and torque them down. There's also something called a crow's foot that you can use, similar to this. Regardless, so we'll go ahead and tighten them all down. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Custom Fit 5th wheel rail kit on our 2019 Ford F-150.